So you're welcome to grab some paper. There's pens, pencils, and then just fold them and just leave them there when you're done. Remember, there's going to be a round table at the end of the day with our 4 wonderful speakers. So please write down your questions, okay? Before we get going with our wonderful, lovely speakers, we're going to enjoy a beautiful poem by our friend Georgia Taylor. And this poem presented by her is entitled Song of Hope and was actually psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, by the spirit Maria Dolores. So please welcome Georgia Taylor.
Song of Hope. Beloved soul, with simple and good faith, no matter how the world torments you, no matter how it casts ice into the believing soul in the betraying shadow, candid soul, listen, suffer, endure, learn, perfect yourself, because from sphere to sphere, no one can grasp the palm of victory without support in the struggle. Wait, for hope is the light of the world, a hidden marvel that reveals itself and shines everywhere for the glory of love. The night awaits the day, the flower the fruit, the thorn the rose, the marble the chisel, even the rough soil awaits the careful, attentive farmer armed with love, plow, and diligence. The worm awaits the sun to warm it. The friendly spring that wells up from the stony heart of the mountain, while it serves and flows, emerges with the endeavors of the river that devours it, and it lays awaiting to rest when the hidden peace of the great life in the bosom of the sea arrives. Whatever you may suffer, embrace the regenerating motto of forgiveness as your duty. Bear patiently the burden that carries you amidst the howling winds and the curses of darkness. Bless on the lashings of anguish and the stormy whirlwind where you do not pass, O heart. And continue without pause, loving, restoring, redeeming, building. In short, do not, I repeat, do not rebel against anything. As gentle as the evening comes, in the sweet twilight stillness, when the grace of the body wanes and ends, you will see how high, noble, and beautiful was the joy of waiting. And while the night advances to grant you the visions of a new dawn, on the wings of hope, you will bless the bitterness, the pain, and the strife, thanking the earth for the grace of understanding them. You will ascend, we will ascend. You will ascend to the nest of light in the chambers of peace that awaits you, woven in starlight radiations. And then, only then, you will understand that beyond the beyond, in the heart of heights, God works, God dreams, God seeks, and God also waits. Thank you. Maria Dolores.
Thank you, Georgia. That was just beautiful. It's amazing that, hope sometimes that's all we have. And that's a very good segue for our next speaker, our friend Flavio Zanetti, who is going to bring us the topic, happiness, child of love and faith. So again, welcome, Flavio. I know that several of us have said welcome to you and welcome to back to Atlanta. You feel welcome. I guess you feel welcome by now, right? All right. So let's talk a little bit about you. So basically, Flavio Zanetti is an avid Spiritist student and a dedicated worker for the Spiritist movement since 1999. He has worked in different positions for the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Massachusetts. He also has acted as program director for the U.S. Spiritist Council, helping organizations across the country to better promote Spiritism in English, Spanish, as well as Portuguese. Zanetti also contributes to the Spiritist movement by translating various materials for the Spiritist magazine and other publications. Lastly, he has been contributing as the General Secretary for the Spiritist Family Retreat for 10 plus years. Professionally, Zanetti is a sales engineer leader working for a multinational software company. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering, a Bachelor of Arts in sociology, and a Master's in business. He lives in Boston with his wife and two beautiful 11-year-old twin daughters. Flavio, the mic is yours.
Hello, everyone. Now, for those that are awake, hello, everyone. Fantastic. So it's with great pleasure and honor that we're here. So thank you so much for the Spiritist groups of Georgia for the invitation to bring us down here to spend maybe a few minutes with you guys, trying to really bring some of the Spiritist ideas so that we can really benefit and learn from them. Before we start, I'd like for us to, still going back to this beautiful poem, keep our thoughts raised to our teacher, to our brother, to our friend Jesus. May he be here with us this afternoon, bringing peace to our hearts, enlightening our minds so that we can really comprehend his message and his teachings with the same dedication that we put to prepare for you guys. Right? So, I know I have a very difficult task to keep you awake after lunch, but I'll do my best. As you know, right? That's what we do. When a worker is ready, the work shows up. Here's what we're doing today. So I'd like for you to look at this picture. Do I need this or no? I'm afraid I might just whack it. Yeah. So I want you to look at this picture. What do you see? A peaceful place. What else do you see? Beautiful sunset. Okay. Or sunrise. Yeah, could be one of the two. Folks, this is the time you're supposed to participate in the conversation. When we ask you questions, you answer them. All right? So, interestingly enough, the clicker's here. Interestingly enough, when you look, or when you search rather, Google for happiness, this is one of the pictures that can come up. But why is it that people usually connect happiness with a beach, with a sunset, vacation? Is that where happiness is? So you're only happy when you're on vacation? Is that what I'm hearing? You're only happy when you're at the beach? It's easy, come, it's peaceful. Is happiness the same as peaceful or peace? Those are some of the things that we'll be talking. So our goal here is to show you that this pathway to happiness, the topic that was proposed to us, could really be understood as a child of love and faith. All right? So, I'd like for you to pick up your phones. Please pick up your phones. Again, this is the time you can participate in the conversation. So pick up your phones and do not search anything, but open Amazon. Open the Amazon app. And girls and guys, please don't shop just as a search, quick search. I'd like for you, no, that's not the purpose of this afternoon. We're not doing shopping, we're doing learning about happiness. So since we're an inclusive, crew here. I got an Android and an Apple phone to include everybody, right? We're inclusive. Spiritists are inclusive. So please search happiness or any other language that you know the word happiness on Amazon. Whoever gets the first number of results gets a prize. No, I'm just kidding. How many items are there, folks? How many items are there? Just happiness. If you search in English, it should show over 200,000 items. So does that mean that in order for you to understand what happiness is, you need to learn or read 200,000 books? Can you do that in a lifetime? Maybe in several generations, but not in one lifetime. All right, for those of you who are able to do it, you can put your phone down, right? If you weren't able to do it, sorry, time's up. Let's continue the conversation. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to cut you some slack, okay? So what is happiness? What is this thing called happiness? Is it the same as peace? Is it the same as joy? Is it the same as pleasure? How do we attain happiness? How do we get to happiness? Is happiness a place that I can put on my GPS and get there? Is happiness, as we learned from our friend Dan in the morning, is happiness associated with something, with a thing? Is happiness a destination or a journey? Let's start with the definition from the dictionary, because that's usually a good starting point, right? If you agree. So happiness is the state of feeling or showing pleasure or joy. So if you're showing pleasure or joy, chances are you are pretty happy, right? That's what it is. But how do you attain that? How do you achieve that pleasure or that joy? The state of being satisfied with something that is good or right. When you have expectations and you meet those expectations, you feel pretty happy. For example, when you complete a class, or when you have a degree or something, or when you finished a task, you want to maybe install a new door in your basement, or maybe you want to replace, a part on your car or something, or maybe you want to fix your computer, or maybe you want to fix a dress, whatever it is that you are doing. Once you finish it, you get happy. Hey, job well done. Great job, right? But if we can really go a little step beyond, happiness is this emotional state of well-being that can be really defined by positive or pleasant emotions that can go from this. Where's the laser? Center. You can go from this to this, or maybe a different kind of emotion. So when you are not happy and then you become happy because something happened to you. What we're trying to do here is find that something. All right? So I'd like for you to maybe look at the screen and think about if these things will make you happier. Take a moment to consider. For example, maybe a relationship, maybe flexibility at work, maybe a new job that provides you to your family, an extra bedroom in your house, maybe looking younger, maybe losing weight, more attentive spouse, a pet, child going well in school, knowing what you really want to do with your life, more supportive, loving parents, maybe a cure from a chronic illness or disease, more money, more time, a baby. Do these things make you happier? I'd like for you to keep that thought. Do these things make you happy? If you look, I'm not going to ask you to do a word cloud because we don't have internet, so actually you have to prepare this. So I'm not, being a clown here in front of you. No, just kidding. So this is a site called Tracking Happiness. And this is the word cloud that they did, that when people think about happiness, they think about pleasure, contentment, jubilation, exhilaration, all those things combined. So those are all things that are related to happiness. Okay, Flavio, but you haven't really told us how do we get there, right? So how do we get to happiness? Let's look at what we learned from philosophy. Let's start from philosophy and let's move towards, right? So for those of you who don't know, Immanuel Kant is one of the greatest philosophers of all times, right? And he writes this book here called The Critique of Pure Reason. And look at his definition of happiness. It's the continuous well-being, the enjoyment of life, complete satisfaction with one's condition. Let's break this down, right? Continuous well-being. Do we have continuous well-being on earth? Don't we get sick? Don't we have trials and expiations and suffering and difficulties? They're part of life, as we learn from Spiritism, right? Spiritism teaches us that we are in a world or a planet of trials and expiations. Therefore, we're going to go through some trials and expiations. Correct? What does that mean? That means we're going to suffer sometimes. We're going to have some shortcomings. We're going to have some disappointments. We're going to have some setbacks. How do we manage all those and still be happy? What about enjoyment of life? Do you enjoy your life right now? Do you enjoy every single day of your life? If you raise your hand, you're lying. Sorry to break it to you. Because some days are tough, right? Some days are difficult. Some days are, complicated. Some days are, a little complex to make sense sometimes. But the idea is that we're not expecting all of us to be happy or discontentment every single day. The idea is that every single one of these trials, tribulations, difficulties, suffering, illnesses, whatever it is, all those things, they do something very important to us, as we learn from Spiritism. And now we're going to see who's studying Spiritism. What is that? What all these things do for us? Lessons. Whoever said that, very good. So we learn from those things, correct? Let's look back at maybe a difficulty that we had in our lives. The moment we were entering that difficulty, oh man, it felt like the world was going to collapse. And then, voila, we left it. We overcame. We won. Then we look back, yeah, I learned how to do this. I learned how to do that. I learned how not to do that. I learned how not to do this. So I came out of that stronger. A better spirit. Do you agree? Yes. So those things that happen to us, they give us what? Almost like an engine. We're getting better with time. I'm not saying wine, because wine, it's an alcohol beverage, but we do get better with time, right? You get the point here. So the complete satisfaction with one's condition doesn't mean complete satisfaction with our life. It means complete satisfaction with where we are right now. That's the invitation for us to embark on this, the longest trip that human beings can make. And that is not between Atlanta, Georgia, and Boston, Massachusetts, where I live. No, it's between here and here. Because the more we know about ourselves, the more we know about our difficulties, our shortcomings, the more we know about things that I can do, things that I cannot do. Oh yeah, I'm pretty good at this. I can, replace that door. I'm pretty good at maybe tying my shoelaces when I'm 7. I can do that. The more we know about our accomplishments, or the things we can do well, the happier we are with our lives. So when we read this quote from Immanuel Kant, it's not for to say, oh, life is roses and everything's great. And no, because that is foolish. Because life is difficult. Life is hard. Life can be tough sometimes. Life can throw you a wrench. And if you're not ready to make that wrench a tool for you to fix a part, right? That wrench can hurt you, right? That's the idea here, folks. So let's bring in a story here for us to maybe highlight what we're trying to say. So this gentleman here is Maurice Bickham. Maurice Bickham, 1950s. He used to live in Louisiana. He was in his house with his family, and then 2 deputies showed up in his front door with guns trying to arrest him for something that he did not do. What does he do? He's afraid of his life. In an act to defend his life, he shoots those 2 deputies and kills them in self-defense. But he's black, 1950s, KKK is still around. What happens? He gets life in prison. How is one happy with one's condition when one gets sent to life in prison? Do you think it's possible to feel happiness in a prison or in jail or any other situations? What I'm going to bring to us here is the psychologist Daniel Gilbert Harvard-trained psychologist. He writes this amazing book called Stumbling on Happiness. And if you can read, pardon if it's too small, right? If you have even the slightest curiosity about the human condition, you ought to read it, trust me. In this book, he gives a couple of examples. One is Maurice Beckham, which we will talk more in a minute. Another one is comparing two people. One that gets into an accident and becomes paraplegic, no longer able to move by himself. And one that wins the lottery. Who'd like to win the lottery here, folks? Raise your hand. A couple of people, maybe all, yeah, it would be nice. A couple of $1 million, you know. Hey, just in case. So I want you to plot in your brain a curve, okay? With two axes, right? One is the amount of happiness, okay? Up and down. And time left to right. I want you to plot, because if you plot, you're going to remember. I could have just brought a picture for you, but I want you to think it and create in your minds so you won't ever forget this. So imagine at the point 0 are those two people. The one that became paraplegic and the one that won the lottery. Okay? Point 0, where's the happiness level for the two? Let's maybe do 0 to 10 or 0 to minus 10. Is that okay? Easy graph? No, we don't have to go back into calculus. No, you can do this. Come on, you're smart individuals, you can do this. So the one that got the lottery, won the lottery, where's his happiness level? 10. That's an easy one, right? The one that became paraplegic, minus 10. Okay? That's an easy one. So what if I told you that those two numbers would intersect? Meaning 10 minus 10, they will intersect. Perhaps 0, perhaps 1, perhaps 2, maybe 3. How long would you say that took? Or that usually takes? 2 years. 3 months. So between 3 months and 2 years. It says exactly 6 months. It does not matter what happens to us. Something in our eyes really good, or something in our eyes really bad. In 6 months, we're back to where we were before. That's the academic study around happiness. So, does that mean that you could choose by either becoming paraplegic or winning the lottery? I'm sure you're going to choose the latter. What I'm trying to say is, things are going to happen to us, left and right, every day, perhaps twice on Sunday. And that's okay. And that's okay. The trick is how we make sense of those things. For example, as we learn from Spiritism, neither wealth nor power, not even youth, are essential to happiness. So none of these things are essential to happiness. But if I want to connect what academic studies are telling us today, or right now, it's interesting. Because all these things here that you thought are going to make you substantially happier, they don't. They can bring you some joy. Like a pet brings a lot of joy. A baby brings a lot of joy and a lot of crying and a lot of other things with it. As we know, trust me, I have two twins. I know the drill really well. So all these things, they make us a little happier for maybe a few days, few months. You got it. But they're not going to make us essentially happier. Or as I say, substantially happier. They're not. They're just not. Continuing, I would like for you to pay attention to the author here on this book, right? The New of Happiness. So think about that, and let's connect with what we learned from Spiritism. The maxim of the gospel teaches us that true happiness, it's something that's really out there in the future. True happiness. Happiness that we hear, we experience, or experiment in this life is just bits and pieces of happiness, not full package happiness, if I could say that, right? So, going back to the research, how much of happiness is under our control? How much can we really control how happy we are? So on the left is what Sonia, the author, talks about in her book. For example, there's biology and genetics. You're born with this genetics, with this biology, this type, that's it. Not a lot of things you can control them, right? You're already here, you're already incarnated, that's it. There's also some life circumstances. Your parents get divorced. Are you going to be happy if you're a kid and your parents get divorced? Never. There's always trauma associated to kids by parents getting divorced. That's reality. Psychology tells us that. Nothing we can do about it. There's also intentional activity. Things you can do intentionally with your life. That's what she says. If you can really plug in what we learn from Spiritism, biology, genetics, past lives, we still own them. That's our past that we own. It's ours. Correct? If you look at life circumstances, as we learned, trials and expiations. I can change a trial. I cannot change an expiation, atonement. I was born without my limbs. That's not a lot of things I can do to get limbs back, right? I can put prosthetics, but it's not going to be the same. I'm still going to have to, go through that difficulty with my life. And intentional activity, knowing ourselves. The more we know ourselves, the more I'm going to set myself up for success. And not success like the world asks or expects us, financially, being famous, right? Or we learned this in the morning, so I'm not going to get there, right? So not that type of success, but the success that I feel great about myself. So if I were to ask you to do a plot again in your brains, what's the percentage on those three situations? Things that we bring in from past lives. Is it 30, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3? What would you think it is? I'm going to cut it to you. It's easy, right? So according to Sonia, 40% give or take is biology, genetics, as we learn, past lives. 40% of our happiness scale, so to speak. Only 10% life, circumstances. Once your parents get divorced, it's going to be miserable for maybe a couple of years. Then you learn to live with it. Then you learn how to overcome it. And you learn how to get better at the end, right? And then intentional activity, if my math is correct, 40 plus 10, 50 minus 100, that's 50%. So what I'm telling you, folks, is that we have a chance to make a change on 50% of the time to bring more happiness to our lives. Would you like to know how to do that? You're supposed to say yes here. Let me ask you again. All right, fantastic. So let me ask you this question. Can money buy happiness? Who thinks it's yes? Raise your hand. 2 people, 3, 4. 4 people. No half. It's either in or out. So who thinks it's a no? Raise your hand. Almost everybody else. So for almost everybody else, sorry to break it to you, but you're wrong. Money can buy happiness. But, this is the but, so long as you spend the money on someone else. So for example, if you give a child that does not have a plate of food to eat, and you provide that child with a plate of food, that brings you, or us, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of happiness. Every time we do something, we volunteer. Oh, guess what? Every worker in the Spiritist Center is a volunteer. We'll feel happy to work, right? Workers, come on, bring it. Do we? Yes. We feel happy when we come here to work. We don't get paid. We spend our money, traveling, gas, all those things. We come and work. We feel great about it. So money, yes, can buy us happiness as long as we use that money on somebody else. Not a brand new suit or a brand new car. Those are things that will make you happy for a couple of weeks, couple of days, and whatnot. So our happiness, this is what we learn from Spiritism, is going to be naturally proportional to the happiness we provide others. Easy peasy. You want to be happy? Provide or offer happiness to others. That's the way it is. Simple as that. Right? Or no? Simple? How do we provide happiness to others? How do we ensure that we are in a good place to offer happiness to others? Because if you're suffering, if you're in difficulties, if you're having a tough day, can you still offer happiness to others? You could, but it's more difficult, right? So what are some of the things that we can do that we can foster that happiness inside of us? Don't worry about it. I brought you guys the happiness cheat sheet. Can never go wrong with that. So now you are allowed to cheat on the test. It's okay. Don't tell your teachers or professors in college. Now you can cheat. So the first one, being grateful. Every time we're grateful, for something, every time we say thanks for something, every time we have the positive thinking, what happens? Something happens in our minds, in our brains, that will feel happier. That's what we learn from academia, right? Positive psychology. Gratitude is strongly and consistently associated with greater happiness. And he goes beyond. Gratitude helps people feel more positive emotions, relish good experiences, improve their health, deal with adversity, and build strong relationships. The more positive we are, the happier we are. And you can be positive. We can train ourselves to be more positive. It's possible. We can all do it. Even amidst difficult situations. Even amidst problems. Even amidst separations. Even amidst anything that happened to us. There's always something positive in that situation. Right? So, Joan Evangelist, the Spirit Guide, talks about psychology of gratitude as a modest synthesis, clearly demonstrated the power of moral values in the defense of loved ones and against fights based on forgiveness, for the construction of harmony and happiness. The more we are grateful for everything that we have, the happier we are. And we all have so much to be grateful for. Don't you agree? At the very least, our parents decided not to abort us. And we're here. Doesn't matter if our parents were bad parents. If they didn't know any better. Doesn't matter. The fact that we are here in this world tells us that we have to be thankful for them to carry on that pregnancy to the end. We have so many people that we can be thankful for. Teachers, or uncles and aunts and family members and friends, the Spiritist Center, all those things. If we train ourselves to look, have you heard about the glass half full, half empty? If we train ourselves to look at the glass half full, trust me, we will live happier lives. Oh, don't trust me. Trust what the scholars are telling us. Because that's a lot of studies around that today. People that forgive more live happier lives. People that have positive intentions live happier life. People that live, healthier and happier lives. That's out there. That's what we learn from Spiritism. That's what science is telling us right now, or corroborating what we learned from Spiritism. Right? Another way to do that, it's investing in social connections. So if you look at this picture, what do you see here? Friends, right? Maybe colleagues, co-workers, having fun, drinking a cup of coffee, right? There's always, I'm going to get there. There's always good things that happen with coffee. That's true. It's positive. It's science. It's research. If you want to have friends, drink more coffee, right? So, but interesting enough, this is what we hear from research, for example, right? Stanford Center for Compassion and Altruism, Research and Education. Good social relationships are the most consistent predictor of a happy life. Good social relationships. Good social relationships, okay? So, here's what we learn from Spiritism. The spiritual reward of true friendship brings us closer to each other with a sincere desire to love and serve our friends, right? Help and build towards all the happiness we all aim for. But here's the catch. You ready for this? Do not pick up your phones. Look, true friendship cannot be generated by these things, right? These things can maintain friendships, but they don't generate friendships. And this is the trick. Because now in this new day and age, we have thousands of friends on our social media. How many of those we drink a cup of coffee or a cup of tea? Because we're inclusive, remember? Or maybe water, or maybe a mango juice, however drinks, suits you best, right? How many of those do we actually interact? The more we interact, the happier lives we live. Easy peasy, right? Continuing. What about stress, hardships, and traumas? Raise your hand if you have never had any traumatic, any stressful, any... Do I need to continue? No, right? Because we all go through these things. It's normal. It's part of life. The challenge or the trick is, how do we go through those things? With all the tools, with all the capabilities that we learn through Spiritism, through loving one another, through loving, not only one another, but loving ourselves, respecting ourselves, right? Doing what we can do, acknowledging the fact that we are there, and all those things. That's what we learn from research and also Spiritism. For example, interesting quote from William James: trauma is the result of a state of confusion. When you're through a traumatic event, it feels very confusing. So what am I doing here? What's going on? I have no idea, right? After which, a lack of acceptance. Oh, this could have never happened to me, my poor little dog. Guess what? Our dogs, they go back to spirit world, right? Like we all gonna go back one day. Could be tomorrow, could be in 20 years, 50 years. We don't know, right? So when we look at these things, we all go through trauma. We all go through the spirit of rationalization in order for the person to return to the equilibrium or the balance that's troubling him or her. That's what we learn from science. What we learn from Spiritism is very close. So I'd like for you to look at this picture here. Do you think that plant grew without difficulties? Maybe there was a little dog that came here and peed on the plant and contaminated the soil, right? Okay, acidity and all those things. So what I'm trying to say, folks, is that we all have difficulties, setbacks, misunderstanding, disagreements. Yes, that's part of life. Welcome to life, my friends. Sorry to break it to you. Welcome to life, right? But Jesus is so merciful that not only did he leave us with his teachings, but he also left us with his mercy that can really open up a lot of doors for us to see the world with a different set of eyes. Think about a pair of glasses, Dan's glasses, when he showed that before. You can change the prism, the perspective on seeing the world with a different pair of eyes. And then do not ask the question, why this is happening to me, but ask the question, what's the purpose? What for this is happening to me? Because why we may not understand what happened in the past. Why might be beyond our comprehension. But what is that for? We learn right away, it's for us to get better. It's for us to overcome it. And God never gives a small car a big load. Right? God never gives a load bigger than the truck can carry. So everything that's happening to us, my friends, we can overcome it. Without a doubt. That's what we learn through Spiritism. Nothing is so big that we cannot carry. The difficulties, the trauma, the stress, all those things. We have the power to overcome it. That's what we learn. And with that knowledge, it gives us peace. Yeah, it's difficult, but I know that maybe in 1 week or 1 month or 1 year, maybe 10 years, I'll be out of this. I'll come out of this stronger. I'll come out of this looking back and say, thank you, Lord, for the opportunity that you gave me to go through this. Because now I'm a better person. Because now I know how to deal with this. Now I know how to complete the calculus equation that I had to learn in middle school or in high school. Pretty much it. That's what we learned through Spiritism. So, another cheat sheet that brings happiness is to live in the present. A lot of people live in the past, according to my grandma, because you guys know, grandma's, teachings are always true, right? Always. They're never wrong. My son, take an umbrella. Come on, grandma, it's sunny out there. 2 hours later, torrential rains. They know better. Grandmas, they know better. So my grandma always used to say to me, son, if you live from the past, you must be a museum. Because you have to acknowledge the past. Yes, you have to honor it, but have to live in the present. That's exactly what we learn from Jesus in his teachings. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they are? Can any of you, by not worrying, add a single hour to your life? So if you're going through a difficulty, Is worrying going to add you an hour to that? No. It's not going to change the things you have to go through. Does that mean that I don't have to suffer on something? No. It's okay. Grief is part of the conversation. When a loved one passes away or goes back to the spirit world, notice I didn't say when you lose somebody, because we never lose anybody. Correct? That person goes back to the spiritual world, then we talk to them, right? Again in the future. That is what? That is just not worry about that. I'm going to see that individual again. That's okay. That is okay. Another thing that we can think about is having and committing to goals. A lot of people don't think about having goals in life. A few that I would like to bring is, if you look at, for example, this author called Viktor Frankl, he was in concentration camp, who had a very difficult time, that I can't imagine that the things he's gone through, none of us are going to have to go through this life. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And even though he had clear goals, his goal was not to die. And he did not die. He did everything he could not to die. Humans need to have a goal that dignifies them, and also society for that matter. Because if that doesn't have the strength to survive life, it becomes a simple desire instead. Our goal shouldn't be to get a bigger house or a better car or travel more. No, those are things that makes us happy right now. Simple happiness. Our goals in life should be bigger than that. We have to really commit to having bigger goals than that. Or if you can't commit to have bigger goals than that, commit to one goal. That's going to bring us to the next phase of our lives at a much better place. As Allan Kardec asked us, or told us rather, that without charity, there's no salvation. Notice that he didn't say without Spiritism, because they'll be a little selfish, right? Only a few millions of us are there in the world. Notice he didn't say without religion, because I know a very good friend of mine calls himself an atheist, and he's the most ethical person that I probably have met in my whole life. It's okay. We need Spiritism. We need something that can really give us some guardrails for us to live our lives. As long as we're practicing charity, helping each other, bringing that plate of food to the child that's hungry, making use of our money to help others, making use of our intellectual, education, knowledge, background, understanding, the list goes on, to help others, that's how we get there. Another one that's taking care of our body and soul. How do we do that? Of course, eating well, going to the gym, those are the simple things that we can do. But the one thing that people don't really think about is, where can we take really a good care of our body and soul? It's here, folks, in the Spiritist Center, a place to learn, grow, heal, and serve. It's right here. We all have access to it. It's right here in our fingertips. This is one of the researches that talks about if Spiritists knew what the Spiritist Center truly is, its function and its significance, Spiritism will be the most important cultural and spiritual movement on earth today, because it is transformational. Once we get a good grip on it, teachings and whatnot, it changes our lives. It's almost like Paul of Tarsus. They look back at himself. I don't want to lead that old life anymore. Don't call me Saul. Call me Paul. Don't call me Flavio. I don't know what that'd be. You got the idea, right? Flavio is my wife, so it gets even more complicated. So to wrap, let's go back to prison happiness. Imagine if you were in jail. You got sent to jail. Sorry, but you were in a situation where there wasn't your crime, but you were sent to jail. What would you do? I'm sure you're going to cry. You're going to be, disgruntled, resentful. All those emotions are going to go through us, right? That's normal. And if you've ever been in jail, not necessarily incarcerated, but visiting jail, right? Visiting inmates, it's a very tough place, right? It's a very difficult place. Place of atonement, place of difficulties and all that. But the thing is, remember Maurice Bickham? What does he do? He gets sent to jail, correct? He gets sent to jail, and what does he do? He doesn't complain. He's not disgruntled. He's not blaming somebody else. What does he do? He uses that opportunity to help other inmates. He uses that opportunity to be something good for somebody, to be himself, somebody that can really help others. Remember, Spiritism? Your happiness is going to be proportionate to level of happiness you provide to others. That's exactly what he did. And when he was asked, look what he said. I do not have even one moment of regret. What? Not even a one moment of regret? No. Gets worse, so gets better. It was a glorious experience. The word glorious is usually associated with religious experiences. Oh, it's glorious. Right? He uses that to describe his 37 years that he was incarcerated. 10 years on death row. So my friends, when examples like this are knocking our doors, they should be an invitation for us to look a little differently within our lives. For us to look, for example, what is the purpose that we have in our lives? Maurice, when he leaves jail, he dedicated his entire life, up to 97 years of age, advocating against death penalty. Because he was innocent. That's what he did. And he lived a life full or filled with happiness. How do we do that? How do we do that? Do you have to be sent to jail to do that? No, Flap, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have to connect that love, sorry about the typo here, right? The love that we learn, loving one another, really caring for each other, spending time with each other. All that cheat sheet that I showed you, as we learn through Spiritism, right, the opportunities, the outcomes that can really translate to happiness. And that's it, as simple as that. I wish you a happy and joyous rest of the day, rest of the weekend, rest of our lives. Thank you very much. Time's up.
Okay. Sorry, microphone. Thank you so much, Flavio. That was wonderful and inspiring. Okay, we're good. And we have gratitude again for a little bit of a water break, lemonade break, juice break, coffee break to be inclusive, right? And also, just wanted to remind everybody in the room, there is paper and pens here, writing utensils. So if you could please write questions to our wonderful speakers, we're going to have Q&A or a round table at the end of the day. For the ones watching us or listening to us online on Facebook, you can just please submit online, okay? So again, let's take 20 minutes for our break downstairs, same place for lunch. We'll see you back in 20. Thank you so much.
It's my alarm, my brain.
Like to just line.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. Hello, hello, hello. Even song you said change. It doesn't do the same It's the whole thing is about this. So we'll get a chance to try. So say somebody have never seen a pet before, and they're saying each other, whoa, this is too much. This is too much. Whoa, what I'm looking for is that.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully, you had a wonderful water break, coffee break, social break. We're all inclusive. I love that. We currently have 8 questions. I am sure that we have more questions for our wonderful speakers, don't we? Yeah. There you go. You guys are so well trained. Very nice. So we want to see that basket full. So please write down your questions, or if you are watching us or listening online, please keep sending them. Congratulations to the folks online. There were more questions online than from this room. Oh, yeah. You see what I mean? You guys got to keep it up, folks over here. All right. So we would like to invite Edward Christie back. And this time he's going to present a wonderful talk and called Visualizing Peacemaking Skills. So please help me welcome Edward back.
Hello, well, nice to be back. Actually, this is the second time I'm in Georgia. I was here for 2012 for the 6th U.S. Spiritism Symposium. So nice to be back. Georgia. I took my first computer programming course many years ago. It's amazing that I remember anything from it, but I do remember 3 things. One thing, though, actually, it's 3 things that the teacher said to me. He said 3 things can go wrong with a computer program. It can produce unexpected results. It could do nothing. Or it could blow up. You know, as a novice programmer, I had to take this on faith. But after years of correcting programming errors, I found my teacher's rule to be true. Because computers and the programs that run on them are human inventions. They inherit human strengths and weaknesses. So to understand how something like a computer program can go wrong, it's useful to look at what it means to be human. Givaldo Franco, in his book, I Love Myself, I'm Addiction Free, says that we've inherited a body that's the result of millions of years of evolution, and an intelligence that's new, not millions of years, but something like 10,000 years. He tells us that research suggests that 80% of the world live from the mouth down, live to put food in their stomachs, clothes on their back, and a roof over their head. We know how to care for the body. We have instincts that allow us to preserve our physical health. We eat when we're hungry, we sleep when we're drowsy, and we look for shelter when it's cold or rainy. But we can't rely on instincts for our psychological health because human nature doesn't have these instincts. So how do we care for our psychological health? How do we protect our sense of right action? Clothe our understanding of what we're supposed to be doing here? And anyway, so what we could do is listen to Jesus. Jesus tells us exactly what we're doing here, what we're meant to do, what the purpose of our life is. Jesus doesn't ask us to be a winner, to be powerful, successful, or great, or even enlightened. Jesus never said, "Thou shalt be perfect." He didn't say, "Live a perfect life." He tells us the reason why we're here is for heart work. Relationship is everywhere in Jesus' teaching. He tells us to love God and one another. He tells us to reconcile with our brothers, to love our enemies, to lay our hands on the sick, and to be a peacemaker. Jesus loved those who seemed unlovable, forgave those who seemed unforgivable, healed those that seemed incurable. And he asks us to do the same thing that he did. He taught us to pray by saying, "Our Father," not "my Father. Give us our daily bread, not give me my daily bread. He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." So we are brothers and sisters of the human family, called to make peace with one another, regardless of the differences that separate us. Strength seems inherently aggressive, and it takes a new thinking, Christ consciousness, to see strength in unity. So things like peacemaking are really hard to understand, and Jesus is calling us to do this. And how do we understand peace? So peacemaking, defining peacemaking is as tricky as defining love or forgiveness. So I'm going to look at peacemaking the way a professional approaches her work. Lawyers can help you if you have a question about law, but lawyers can't make you a good citizen. A teacher can help you if you lack knowledge, but a teacher can't develop your intelligence. A doctor can help you if you have bodily disease, but a doctor can't create good health. These professionals recognize that the remedy for questions about the law, bodily health, or lacking knowledge are essentially external, while good citizenship, health, and intelligence must be developed by each one of us internally. We don't lack external truth. We have so much truth out there for us. What we need to do is to examine and study these truths to find out how they are true for us, each one of us individually. If you let someone else tell you what those mean, you're living someone else's life. So I might be able to help you with how peacemaking can go wrong, but to be a peacemaker is an inside job. To be a peacemaker is something, or the way peace can go wrong, rather, is similar to my teacher's rule on computer programs. Peacemaking can blow up, peacemaking can do nothing, or peacemaking can produce unexpected results. So let's take this time to look at these three things individually. My teacher told me that peacemaking can go wrong, or rather computer programs can go wrong when they blow up. A program that blows up has reached a limitation, either of the computer itself or the skill of the program. And instead of handling that limitation, the program just says, I can't do this, or the computer. In daily life, blowing up means that we've reached the limit of our ability to make peace, and anger is taken over. When anger speaks, it says, I don't want what I'm getting, or I'm getting what I don't want. Anger thinks that something or someone is wrong or bad or an enemy. Anger wants something or someone to change and overestimates our ability to control situations and people. Mahatma Gandhi said, man is the maker of his own destiny, in the sense that he has freedom of choice as to the manner in which he uses his freedom. But he has no control of results. Once he thinks he is, he comes to grief. We are powerless over the results of our actions. And so when things don't go our way, and we forget that we don't have control over the results, anger will burst out. Anger's closest ally, its closest friend, is impatience, because anger wants things to change, and impatience can't wait for things to change. Impatience lives in a world of instantaneous solutions. Everything has to happen right now. The person must change immediately, and the situation must be corrected this instant. The bond between anger and impatience is the desire for change, and this desire is based in emotion. I know I brought this for you. So we've all had a visit from anger and emotion, anger and impatience. I know these visit me many times during the day. So my job is to be a good host and introduce these two emotions to the discipline of patience. Emotions like anger and impatience can't be controlled by our will. Unlike emotions, patience is a choice, a conscious choice to make friends with anger and impatience. Patience doesn't take away these emotions, but it kind of steers them in a new direction. I picture patience like windshield wipers in a storm. You know, if I turn on the windshield wipers, it's not going to stop the rain, but it will help me to see more clearly where I'm going. Patience is a choice, something that comes from the power of our will. But once anger and impatience show their face, choosing patience is difficult. So we have to practice with little things. Because if we make a big deal out of little things, what do we do when the big ones come? We're experts at using our intelligence to make ourselves irritated. We complain that the weather's too hot or too cold, there are too many mosquitoes in the summer, the trains take too long to come, the lines are so long at the supermarket, and there are so many bad drivers on the road. Complaining about irritations is the junk food that anger and impatience feed on. We get irritated because of the way we think. Shantideva, the 8th century Buddhist monk, puts it this way. If you walk barefoot, your feet will get cut by stones, wet from puddles, and burned by hot sand. You can think, the world is too sharp, too wet, too hot. I got this idea. I got to wrap the entire world in leather. That way, nothing will ever bother my feet again. But isn't it more reasonable to wrap a little bit of leather around my feet? Then I could walk anywhere, and the earth won't bother me with its hotness and sharpness and wetness. See, it's not the world that needs to change, but how we live in the world. We can't eliminate all pain and suffering, but we can pay attention to our thoughts, to our likes and our dislikes. If we think that something is for us or against us, or if we agree or disagree with the way things are, so that when irritation strikes, we can meet it with the discipline of patience before anger and impatience show their face. It's not only our thoughts, but also the words we speak that matter, because peacemaking depends on our words. Words matter because they reflect what's in our hearts. Joannes de Angelis says, words manifest an individual's moral qualities. In Matthew's gospel, we hear, on the day of judgment, people will account for every careless word they speak. Ouch. And whatever comes out of the mouth comes from the heart. And that's what makes a person unclean. In the book of James, we read, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Now, one of the problems is our Western culture idolizes self-expression. I have a right to say what I think and feel, and of course you do. But what would happen if you took the time to consider the consequences of expressing what you think and feel? Have you ever spent a restless night regretting something that you said? Ask yourself, did what I say bring pain into the world? Did my words make the situation worse? Did expressing myself cause division? Peacemaking reminds us to keep silent when we want to change someone, or violate their free will, or say things to people that cause pain and division. And peacemaking asks us to speak when our words unite, words that benefit another person, and when they're truthful, and when they're pleasing. My teacher told me that computer programs can go wrong when they do nothing. The program works, it doesn't blow up, but nothing happens. Saying nothing happens is too hasty a conclusion, because by definition, a program can't do anything. There's a program. It could have thousands of individual instructions, and they can all work exactly the way I intended, and yet not produce any result I can see. Peacemaking can be like this. Peacemaking has seemed to do nothing to end differences and bring about peace. We're skeptical of peacemaking because we fear it won't produce anything significant, or that we fear that peacemaking will label us as unrealistic or dreamer, and will be seen as weak and laughed at. And we can lose hope, saying, I've been working so hard to make peace, and nothing I do works. St. Paul clears our vision. He says of this skepticism, where does this leave the philosophers, the scholars, and the world's brilliant debaters? God has made the wisdom of this world look foolish. And again, for the wisdom of the world is foolishness with God. And one more time, God has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to shame the things that are strong. See, peacemaking looks foolish to the wise because they're following the wisdom of the world that values winning and results. The wisdom of God is not concerned with results, but about right action and right work. The writer and theologian Thomas Merton wrote, "Do not depend on the hope of results. You may have to meet with the fact that your work will be apparently worthless and produce no result at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you expected. As you get used to this idea, start more and more to concentrate on not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself." So what is right work? Well, picture this. I go to my doctor and I say, "Doc, I finally figured it. I want to be healthy. I've been trying and trying. I want to be healthy. What should I do?" So what would she tell me? She said, eat right, exercise, get rest, have a hobby, stay connected with family and friends. Hey, great. That's all I got to do. I do all those things and I'm going to be healthy. And what will she tell me? Well, I can't guarantee you're going to be healthy, but you'll be doing the right things for your health. When we decide to be spiritually healthy, we focus on right action. We love, even if it's conditional. We forgive, even when I still feel hurt. We reconcile, even if it's only partial reconciliation. And we make peace, even if it seems to do nothing. We don't control results. So if I focus my attention on the outcome of my work, I'll only be disappointed and give up when things don't happen on my timetable. And results can be deceiving. Something that looks good may turn out to be harmful. I mean, eating a gallon of ice cream sounds like a great thing, but watch out for the results. And sometimes something that seems harmful holds benefits. We'd never stick a baby with a pin, but we do bring them to doctors that make them cry when they give them shots to preserve their health. It's hard to get work right because work often means doing something that someone else tells us is valuable. We might be able to do this to earn a living, but not with spiritual work. Spiritual work values the work itself, or else work becomes a means to an end to get something good or avoid something bad, and there we are, working for results. We can work hard to conform to the rules, lead a sinless life, be regular in every way, and still live a life that's without peace. We can know the rules inside out and still have a heart that's cold and hard. In the Spirit's book, the divine or natural law of work tells us that there's a limit to work, that the limit is the limit of our strength, and that this point must be decided on with each person individually. When we strain at work, we push ourselves beyond the limit of our strength. And we might be able to do this for a short time, but we take a mistaken view of human nature if we think that we can strain indefinitely at work. If we work this way, our work will eventually defeat us. You don't have to believe me. Ask anyone who's ever been on a diet that asks them to give up food indefinitely that they're not ready to give up. And they'll tell you how true this is. The work we do must be rooted not in force and strain, but in love and peace. If we're miserable in our work, or our work makes other people miserable, it probably means that we're frustrated because we're not getting the results we expect from it. The limit of work is found in our ability to work with a peaceful heart. We trust in the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself, and our work creates not strain and misery, but peace and unity. Martin Luther King Jr. dedicated much of his life to exposing the deep racism in this country through nonviolent protests. He said, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. King spoke these words on April 3rd, 1968. The next day, he was shot and killed. During his life, Martin Luther King Jr. was often defeated and weary. And when he was assassinated, he still had so much work left up to be done. But he kept his focus on right work, creating peace and listening to the will of God. His work seemed insurmountable, and he died a martyr's death. But he trusted in the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself, because it was grounded in his love for his fellow man. My teacher told me that computer programs can go wrong when they don't produce the results I expect. The program works, produces something, but it's not what I thought, not what I expected. My teacher told me, as an aside, that this is the most common computer programming problem, and I think it's the most common problem that we face as humans with peacemaking as well. So I found that this kind of error is common when I've oversimplified the problem. I didn't account for the complexity of the information I had to work with. St. Augustine helps us to understand the dangers of simplistic, black and white, all or nothing thinking. As a young man, he anxiously sought the answer to the question, where does evil come from? The problem is this: if God is good, he would want his creatures to be happy. And if God is all powerful, he could do as he wished. But creatures are not happy. So God lacks either goodness or power, or maybe even both. Now, I know we could ask this question, talk about it, read a couple of books, and still get a good night's sleep. Not St. Augustine. Augustine was a passionate young man, and he felt like he had to get this right to live a meaningful life. He found his first answer in the solution offered by Manichaeism. This religious movement is based on a complex creation myth that I won't even try to explain to you, because I've read it many times. I still can't figure it out myself. But I will tell you the one thing that the Manichaeans are known for until today. And that is, the Manichaeans teach that there's a battle between two moral opposites, two equally strong supreme powers that are battling for your soul. In other religions, called as God and the devil, but they don't use those terms. One power is goodness and in light, and the other power is evil and in darkness. Now, the good power rules over a spiritual realm and is responsible for everything that's good. And the evil power is responsible for the material world and is responsible for everything that goes bad. Ha! Well, this did it. Augustine figured it out. God is good and powerful because he's got nothing to do with the bad stuff. That's all the evil power responsible. The evil power is responsible. Augustine was a Manichae for 10 years. For 10 years he believed this. Then he started to get a little unhappy about it, that the answer was a little too simple, and he started to read the Bible and take it seriously. And he found in the Bible that there was one God who created everything. And everything he created, he called good. Augustine says that moral evil is not the result of some evil principle, but rather is the result of human free will. God doesn't prevent the evil that comes from our will because free will itself is a good that he's given to humans. Free will is given to us so that we can choose to follow God's will. Free will is not intended for us to do wrong. Augustine says God could prevent us from doing evil by taking away our free will. But he prefers to show his love by bringing good out of evil, rather than to have a world that has no evil in it. Now, this might sound very philosophical and airy-fairy, and so let's think about the idea of one unifying principle versus two conflicting principles this way. Say I buy a shirt, find when I try it on there's a hole in it. I can't remove the hole and send it back to the merchant. My new shirt isn't made from two substances, one good and one bad, a shirt and a hole. The hole exists because the shirt exists. And without a shirt, there's no hole. Now, I might decide that, I don't want a shirt with a hole in it, and I'll return it to the merchant. Well, these days, holes in clothes are stylish, so I might decide to keep it anyway, right? But we go wrong when we think of defects in people the same way we think of a defect in the shirt. And that's because Jesus tells us that people are made to love and be loved. People are not made to be free from damage and defect, but rather to use their free will to make peace, to forgive, to love. Augustine says that moral evil doesn't have its own existence like a hole without a shirt, but rather is the lack of the good. Our belief in one God and human free will make it easy for us to accept this. But we often see the world as a Manichae does, dividing the world into good and bad, right and wrong, light and dark. We think that the belief in one good and one evil force is misguided, but we think this way when we look at people as good or evil, as if they were controlled by two different forces. Objective good and evil do exist, but we go wrong, like the computer program, when we use our prejudices, our biases, and our incomplete understanding as a measure of good and evil. We can see the good in others subjectively or objectively. We look at the good in others subjectively when we say, what does this person mean to me? How can they help me? Do they treat me right? And we can see the good in others objectively. Every person we meet has intelligence, free will, conscience, reason, imagination, creativity, and mainly the capacity to love. We're skilled at finding the wrongs that other people do. But the wrongs we see are not in the person. The wrong is in the action or the use of the will. A person could do something evil or criminal, but no matter what evil a person does, he cannot make his human nature evil because he is created as good by a good God. As we open our vision, we see that human free will is a good regardless of how it's used. Seeing the good in others objectively and loving that good changes us both. When we love the good in others objectively, it changes them because now they know they're lovable and they're loved in spite of their faults because their faults are overshadowed by the enormous amount of good. Loving the good in others changes us because when we see the good in other people, we have to learn to love them the right way. And when we love them right, we become peacemakers. Now that's something that's simple. Not easy, but simple. My teacher's 3 ways that computer programs can go wrong helped me to mature as a programmer and open my vision to peacemaking. As insightful as my teacher's rule was, I know I won't remember it when I'm stressed or upset. What I can do is develop a peaceful mind before trouble strikes. You know, we often pray, help me to put into practice what I've learned. When we practice, that prayer is answered. So here's 3 skills or practices we can use to help build up our peacemaking muscle. I've given them names. I call them making room for the 10%, offering silent intentions, and the breath of patience. Skill number 1. When peacemaking gets unintended results, it means that we have lost the true value of relationship. That is, to love the good in another person. Our prejudices, biases, and incomplete understanding prevent us from seeing the good in other people. None of us has the whole truth. Each of us sees only part of the truth. So making peace with others means holding more than one truth in our mind and asking, what truth does this person have that I don't? The Franciscan speaker, Richard Rohr, gives us a way to ask this question. This skill, making room for the 10%, is aimed at our intention to make peace with the limits of our understanding. Here's what Richard Rohr suggests. When I disagree with someone, admit that that person is at least 10% correct. Right? Admitting that the person has at least 10% of the truth makes that person's truth, it makes room in my mind for that person's truth. Making room for the 10%. We love the good in others because now we see that we're all searching for the truth. Skill number 2. When peacemaking seems to do nothing, it means that we have lost faith in the value of right work. Valuing right work tests our belief in reincarnation and immortal life, that what we do has a meaning apart from the seeming insignificance of everyday living. This skill, offering silent intentions, is aimed at our desire to make peace with right work. I call them silent intentions because you don't say these things out loud. Instead, you just say them to yourself. Does someone you love think, may you be happy? Does someone you pass on the street think, may you have peace? Does someone you work with think, may you be healthy? Does someone who challenges you think, may you be loved? And to someone like a politician think, may you be free from suffering. Offering silent intentions blocks our habit to judge people, teaches us to want the good for others, and makes a mind ready to make peace. This is something I love to do. I walk on the street and I say these things. It's really something. I can't say these things and judge people at the same time. It just becomes impossible for me. Skill number 3. Instead of peacemaking when we blow up, we give into a force that strengthens the ego and blinds us to our deeper nature. Blowing up exhausts our breath. Choosing patience gives us time to breathe and wait for a peaceful response. This skill, the breath of patience, is aimed at our intention to make peace without deep capacity for patience. Place a hand on your heart and breathe in before saying each of these statements. I am a spirit. I am immortal. I am forgiven. I am loved. The breath of patience awakens us to our deeper nature and is our halfway house of peace. Making room for the 10%, offering sound intentions, and the breath of patience are only 3 ways to develop our peacemaking skills. I invite you to try them for yourself. They may open the door to peace. Practicing a skill is one way to develop our peacemaking ability. Another is to study the lives of those people who have found peace. St. Francis was a peacemaker, but it took him some time to understand what that meant. See, as a young man, this can be a surprise. As a young man, St. Francis wanted to be a knight. He wanted to sit on a horse, dressed in fine clothes, carry an axe and a sword, and achieve glory by defending his hometown of Assisi. When he was 20 years old, he got his first chance. He went off to fight a war with the neighboring city of Perugia. He never made it there. On the way, he was taken prisoner and thrown into a polluted church basement. He spent a year in that prison, and when he escaped, he spent another year in Assisi recovering from malaria. But he still wanted to be a knight. So when he was strong enough, he got back on his horse and he went to fight a war in the city of Apulio. He never made it there. On the way, he spiked the fever and he was brought to an inn. Lying there in bed, sweating from fever, he heard a voice telling him, "Go home. There you'll be told what to do. You'll be a knight, but not the kind of knight you imagine." 12 years later, after turning his life around and becoming the Francis that we know, he went off to fight a war again. This time in the 5th Crusade. But this time it was not to raise a sword against Muslim enemies, but as a peacemaker, bearing a gift of reconciliation. He entered the enemy camp unarmed, and like the true knight that he was, he bravely risked his life for his Lord, for his Heavenly Father. Francis wanted to talk to the Sultan of Egypt, a man named Malek al-Kamil. It was amazing to me that he could do this, just walk up. You know how St. Francis used to dress. He found that he talked to the Pope. Could you imagine any of us going, hey, I want to go talk to the Pope? Francis talked to the Pope. And he talked to Malek al-Kamil as well. The Sultan's advisor said, don't meet with Francis. He wants to convert you to Christianity. And because of that, by law, he should be killed. Francis says, I don't want to convert the Sultan. I just want to present the Sultan's soul to God on behalf of Jesus Christ. Al-Kamil was interested in what Francis had to say, and he actually spent a couple of days with St. Francis talking to him. See, Francis didn't see the Muslims as an enemy. In fact, he said, if you find a piece of the Quran on the ground, this Muslim's holy text, if you find a piece of that Quran on the ground, you ought to pick it up, kiss it, and place it on the altar. Because that piece of paper represents their search for God. The Muslims are searching for God, and so are we. Francis thought that to achieve glory, he'd have to raise weapons against an enemy. Once he stopped being preoccupied with his will and his dream, he was able to become a true knight, brave and loyal and willing to risk his life for his one true Lord. He placed his trust in God's will, and God changed Francis's heart. God's will became Francis's will, and whatever God loved, Francis loved. Unlike Francis, we have a tough time making God's will our own. We're more like the mountain climber who had almost reached the top of the mountain when he slipped and fell. Hanging over the edge of the cliff and holding on for dear life, he raised his head and said, "Help! Is there anybody up there?" And he hears a voice, "This is God. Let go, I'll catch you." The mountain climber looks up and says, "Is there anybody else up there?" To be a peacemaker, we not only have to see the good in God, we also have to be willing to see the good in ourselves and in our neighbor. We tend to be on the lookout for faults, and this can make it hard for us to see the good. We think that eliminating faults will make us better people and make the world a better place, and of course this is true. But when we think that progress in the world is slow, and people really aren't changing for the better, we can lose faith that peace is possible. St. Thomas Aquinas gives us a way to look at the world, to look at ourselves and other people that brings an immediate sense of peace. Here's what he says. All that is good should please us, always, everywhere, and in every creature. Let me repeat that. All that is good should please us, always, everywhere, and in every creature. St. Thomas writes this in a book called The Ways of God, and so this is how St. Thomas understands God sees his creatures. To be pleased with the good, always, everywhere, and in every creature. When we think this way, the better world we're looking for isn't some way off in some distant future. It's not a perfect world where all faults are eliminated. Rather, the better world we want is here right now. To be pleased with the good doesn't mean to ignore faults. St. Thomas goes on to say, we should always and everywhere detest evil and exert ourselves to prevent it because it is injurious to God and harmful to our neighbors. So St. Thomas isn't asking us to take no notice of faults. Instead, we take these two attitudes, being pleased with the good and detesting evil, and put them in their proper perspective. If we set our hearts on detesting evil, it's easy to lose perspective, and we can forget to be pleased with the good. Objectively, and by that I mean if we leave our objections to faults on the side, faults are small in comparison to the enormous amount of good that's in every creature. It's true that faults are blemishes on the good, but faults don't take away the good. A house with peeling paint and a broken window is blemished, but for all that, it's still a house. If for some reason I can't fix the blemishes, the house is nonetheless a house. Its purpose, what a house is for, is unchanged, and we can still see the good in it. If, as Jesus says, our purpose is to love God and one another, we need a heart that's pleased with the good. When the good pleases us, it's easier to make peace. Whereas we feel that we have to eliminate faults to get to the good, that creates obstacles. To be human is to have faults. To be human is also to be blessed with a tremendous amount of good. What are the goods in people? Let me repeat. Every human being that you meet has intelligence, reason, free will, conscience, creativity, imagination, and the capacity to love. So we're faced with a choice. If we fix our attention on how we misuse the gifts that God gives us, we lose sight of the good. If instead we point our lens at the good, the faults are still there, but they're not the subject of the picture. We live a heartfelt life, one where peace can make a home, even if that home has peeling paint and a broken window. The home of peace is in our hearts, and the home we make for peace depends on what we value. And as Christians, as Christians, we aim to value what Jesus values. In his letter to the Philippians, St. Paul writes, "The attitude you should have is the one Christ Jesus had." Jesus shows us what it means to live a human life, what human life is for, to love God and one another. Jesus valued the inherent God-given goodness in people. He valued goodness in the sinner. He valued it in the weak. He valued it in the adulterer. He valued goodness in the criminal, hanging next to him in the cross. He valued goodness in the outcast. He valued goodness in the poor, and he valued it in the sick. Jesus took care of the good that he found in the world. Wherever there was good, he was pleased with it. He valued it, and he loved it. Jesus didn't aim to teach us the finer points of religious law, and he wasn't concerned about codes of moral behavior. He didn't moralize when someone failed to live up to a moral standard, and he didn't reject people because they weren't living a perfect life. Jesus valued people, and in his life showed that people are more important than perfection. He seemed to be able to do this by putting human faults into perspective. Jesus valued people by respecting their limits. He didn't condemn them for their frailties. He accepted what they could do. His closest associates, the apostles, barely understood him. And yet he looked straight into their hearts, to their deepest innermost self, and there he found goodness and true value. So how do we value people the way Jesus did? Well, we've heard how peacemaking can go wrong. We looked at some skills, and we heard about St. Francis's road to peace. But peacemaking is a lot more than words, skills. Jesus told us that the second greatest commandment is to love our neighbor as ourselves. God speaks to us through our neighbor. With them, we find out that peace is a lot more than words and skills. So I'm inviting you to a practice where you can do what Jesus asks, to love your neighbor. The intent of this practice is to develop compassion and to awaken the deep reserve of love that's in each one of us. This is a standing practice, and what I'd ask you to do now, without saying anything and as quietly as you can, if you would please stand up. You need a partner for this practice, so turn to someone who's in the room. Could be someone that you know or someone you're meeting for the first time. You don't have to really say anything to this person. Just agree to be partners in this practice. Face your partner and find a relaxing way to stand. This practice will take a few minutes, so find a position that's comfortable. First thing to do is rub your hands together. Create some heat. When you feel the heat in your hands, place the palms of your hands over your eyes. Oh, if you have glasses, it's tough. But feel the pressure of your hands on your face. Enjoy the warmth of your hands and feel the pleasure that it brings to you. Now relax your eyes. Let yourself become quiet. Relax any tension that you carry. Now take a breath and lower your hands. Slowly open your eyes. Facing your partner, look softly into your neighbor's eyes. And this isn't something that you normally do, so it's natural if you feel a little uneasy. Take a breath. If you feel the urge to laugh or look away, be patient with yourself. Take your time. Be kind to yourself. Be respectful of your limits. When you can, come back to your partner's arms. The opportunity for you to be with this person is given to you now. As you look in your partner's eyes, become aware of the beautiful spirit behind those eyes. The original goodness and innocence that they were created with. The value that they bring into the world. Behind those eyes are talents and strengths and great potential. See the goodness and the value that's just behind those eyes. As you see the beauty in the spirit of your partner, sense the gifts that are there. Observe the immense reserves of courage, intelligence, patience, endurance, generosity, and mercy. See the inherent value in your partner and the goodness that has been placed there. What you're experiencing is the love and tenderness that's in you and in your neighbor. The love and tenderness that lives deep in the heart. Now take a breath and move from those thoughts and look more deeply into your partner's eyes. As you look more deeply, become aware of the amount of sorrow behind it. See the pains and struggles that this person has accumulated in this life. The pain that defines all of human life. Pains that you can only guess at. Their disappointments, failures, losses and loneliness, hurts and sorrows, abandonments and betrayals. Open your hearts to hurts so intimate that he or she may never have told another person. Hurts locked deep in their heart. You can't fix the pain, but you can bear it with courage, tenderness. Imagine your partner as a hurt child, how you would naturally reach out to give comfort. What you're experiencing is the heart of compassion. Compassion that has the power to bear the sorrow in the world. Take another breath and release this sorrow. Continue to look deeper into your partner's eyes. Imagine him or her as a child. Picture their happiest moments. A moment of innocent joy, of learning, of growing. Imagine them as they take their first steps, as they run, play games, their first days at school, the first time they saw the ocean, looked up at the stars. See the spirit of the child that's still there, a playfulness and a freedom they can still express. Think of the simple joy this person's presence brings into the world, and the capacity that joy has to bring beauty into the world. Feel your own joy as you become aware of the beauty your partner brings to life. What you're experiencing is the joy of innocence and the source of humility. Value this experience of innocence as you would a gift you've waited a long time to receive. Take another breath and release this joy. Look even deeper into your partner's eyes. Become aware that your partner is an eternal spirit. As you meet in this moment, look at your partner as if you're seeing the face of one who at another time, place, was your mother, father, son or daughter, friend or enemy, wife or husband, student or teacher. Who is this person that you're looking at? Not the body, not the thoughts, but the consciousness behind those eyes. And who's looking? Who are you, really? You have the capacity to love. And with that love, to experience the deep reserve of love that's in your partner's heart. Recognize that the ground of this person is love. Look as deeply as you can at your partner. Look past the qualities, past the sorrows, and past the joys. When you've touched the bottom of all you can see, there you will find love. The ground of your spirit and the ground of your partner's spirit is love. Now gently close your eyes. And when you're ready, open your eyes and thank your partner.
And all I can say is, wow. I mean, I'm deeply touched. Ed, that was an amazing experience. I mean, it's amazing when we can look into somebody's eyes and somebody's soul and recognize an eternal spirit. This is just incredible. Thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to the next part of our event, which is the Q&A. And before we get there, I know everybody's standing, but make sure, let's all stand up again. It's been a very long day. Let's take a moment to stretch. You know, it's been an awesome day. So much information was provided to us. You know, sometimes we spend a whole day doing different activities and we learn new things, but you know, days like this are special. Yeah, we can all sit down now and get ready for our Q&A. And my partner of the exercise and also a very great volunteer here is gonna bring our seats here for the and again, we're gonna have our Q&A again, our Q&A session. So I want to thank everybody now in the audience who both here in person and also the individuals online who posted their questions for us. I mean, also I'm going through the questions here. I'm afraid we're not gonna have enough time to cover all the questions. We did receive quite a lot, but I'm pretty sure our guests, our lecturers here will do their best to address as many as possible. And 2 more chairs and we'll be good. So now I'd like to invite back Dan, Flavio, Susanna, and Edward. Thank you again for providing us with a day of so much insight, so much opportunity for us to look into ourselves and to try to address, to identify those aspects of our lives that need to be improved and all of our potential. So I would like to start with the first question. I have a question for Dan. Dan, how can we help our teenage kids who are only focused on beauty, fame, and social acceptance? That was the easiest one, so that's why I went. Can you hear me? Sort of, right?
We were just talking earlier today. Teenage years are so difficult because we are trying to find our purpose and our place in life. And all those things are really hard. And we were also talking about earlier during lunch how difficult it is to live in these times as a teenager where you have the internet and phones readily accessible where people can post and say things to you without being close to you, or recording something you did and sharing it with 20 million people, right? And that's really hard for people who are trying to find their place in the universe. But I'm gonna tell you a secret. Teenagers are just like mini worms. We're not different. We also struggle with the same desires, just at a different levels, and hopefully without all the hormones, or a lower level, right? So what do we tell our children? We look at their behavior, not as a rebellion, not as an indication of anything else other than a need. They are searching for the same needs that we are, just in different ways. What are those needs that we all have that we can talk about? We have the need to be accepted. We have the need to be loved, to matter. So all those things about looking for fame, looking for beauty, is a desire to be acknowledged and validated and loved just the way they are. They just don't have the words to do it. Because frankly, we don't have the words to do it. How many of us has gone to school to learn how to express our feelings or troubleshoot our emotions? Right? Our parents didn't either. So oftentimes we, as the children that we are, blame our parents, but they had even less social emotional training than we. But it's time for us to get wiser and break that cycle. So what is the one answer? Let's talk to our teenagers, even when they're young, to remind them how loved they are, how seen they are, how valued they are, and that they are immortal spirits. And they have a purpose. That God loves us and that we love them. And with that, we will begin to sow some seeds that might not blossom in your teens, how many of you were really interested in deep, serious, life-altering, noble things when you're teenagers? Right? If you were, good for you, right? I know I wasn't. But with those conversations that we have will settle, they will stay there, and we come back to them and we use them as compasses, right? As ways of seeing the light. So if that is happening with your teen, just stay the course. Tell them that you love them. Explain to them what's happening with them, why things are so hard. Remind them that you have been a teenager too, even though it may not look like it, right? And that things are going to be okay. And just give them a little bit of space because they're figuring life out just like we are too. So yes to fame, yes to wealth, and all these things are going to come. Man, they got this thing called influencer now. It's a career. Have you heard about this? This is like the sign of the times. You thought selfies were like indicative, but what is an influencer? It's somebody who's famous for being famous, right? They are not an influencer because they do something really well. Like they're not a carpenter, they're not a mechanic, they're not a builder. Their job is to get your attention somehow. Keep it so that somebody else can sell something to you. Right? This is the apex of our society. Well, there's influencers that do great stuff, and I'm not trashing influencers, but I'm saying like as a society, a lot of our teens now want to be these things, which are the old actors and actresses and famous people, because they are looking for those fulfillment, inner fulfillment that we are also looking in different ways. Validation, love, affection. So accept them. Tell them that. Remind them. They might not be, they might not openly acknowledge, but they know. So if you do that, I think that we go a long way to reminding them that there's something more than that triangle of glitter, right? Of fame, beauty.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I just want to add something because Dan does not have teenagers at home yet. It's coming. It's coming. You are the teenager of the house. And I do have two teenagers, 13 and 14 years old. So one of the things that I want to tell you all, and it's going to be online, is that my teenagers are definitely not the ones on Facebook. Although I do post stuff, that is just not, what they are on every day. We struggle quite a bit. And I think it's important to say because sometimes we also have this idealization. Oh, she speaks, she's doing this and that. Her house must be like perfect. Her kids are like achievers, no problem. So as we deal with their humanity and our own, I think one of the things that we try to do is to be more curious than righteous. So, and I think that that's something that the world needs in general, is we need to be more curious about why people are doing what they're doing before coming very strong with a speech of what we need to understand, what is driving people's behaviors and feelings. So having a conversation and asking, okay, you did this, now share with me. What were you thinking? What were you feeling? So that we can actually connect, and none of us will be perfect parents, but it's important that they know that they have a solid house, a place where they can come back to, where they will always find love, and a place to be seen, to belong. They need to feel that. They may not appreciate in the moment, but if you are steadily there for them with curiosity, doesn't need to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it's there. So they can go, they will have their trials and errors, but one thing that they have steady and constant is the certainty that there is a home for them, a safe place where they are seen, they acknowledge, they are validated, in their love, because ultimately that's what all of us are looking for.
Wow. Thank you, so that's an amazing comment. Any of the other lecturers like to comment, or should we move on to the next question? Move on. All right, Flavio, I have one question for you. Came from our audience online. Flavio, how can we tell the difference between moments of happiness from moments of pleasure?
Moments of pleasure are, if you remember what I presented, are that screen blue. It's very nice to buy a brand new car. If you ever bought one, it smells nice, it's great, it rides nice, it won't break necessarily, right? But then eventually that car gets old. Then that pleasure is no longer. The big difference, the way I see it, is pleasure is very temporary. So it's quick pleasures, whereas happiness, it's a state of mind, it's a journey that we all live through. Similarly speaking, if you get a new job, it's a very pleasurable experience. When you get a raise, a promotion, when you buy a little, when you get a little dog, adopt a dog, or buy a pet. Those are great things that help us with some pleasures, but not necessarily towards happiness throughout the lifestyle. You can be contributing to happiness, but that's not the essence of happiness. Hope that makes sense.
Made a lot of sense. Thank you. Any additional comments from any of the lecturers? Okay, Susanna, yeah. Susanna, back to you. We know everyone is different, but what do you suggest when your partner is extremely polar opposite, and that breaks the peace of your home? That was an easy one, you know. Well, by the way, yeah, we have 25 minutes for everybody.
Wow, I don't know the answer for that. So it's good that when you grow up, right, you come to this place where you don't have to have the answer for everything. That's a good thing. It's a marriage. Let's get to marriage, right? So marriage is. Should I not say it? Marriage is the greatest, definitely the greatest opportunity for a spiritual growth. Because you cannot change your kids, right? You cannot divorce them, as far as I know. I mean, but you can choose to divorce your partner. So it's something that you are actually choosing to engage, to be in that relationship. And so with that, having curiosity, I'm going to go back to curiosity because I think that is one of the key elements missing in our society. So when you engage in and I'll tell you something that I learned in my marriage. So when you engage in a conversation with your partner, with anyone, but let's say partner here because that's what we're talking about. Are you really ready to listen to what the other person has to say? So one day I came home from the center and I was kind of upset with a conversation that I had at the center with someone. It was a little bit of a conflictual situation. And I'm home sharing with my partner what has happened. And she asked me, when you were in that conversation, were you truly curious about what the other person was saying? Let's stop for a second. Not at all, right? So being in a conversation and bringing curiosity means that maybe there's 10% in you that is actually willing to understand where the other person is coming from. Usually when we are dialoguing, right, there is really no curiosity on our part to understand where the person is coming from. We are there to say our truth. Hopefully, the other person will buy what we are saying. There's very little space often for us to truly hear. So from that point on, I ask myself, I try to remind myself every time that I know I'm going to talk about something that is difficult or address something that is difficult in my relationship, that I must bring curiosity into the picture. Curiosity generates openness and really creates the possibility for you to listen, to understand where the other person is coming from. So perhaps that is the beginning, right? Is to create those bridges that help us to not only want to have things done our way, right? But to be able to, like the example that I gave in my talk, right? So we see very differently how the refrigerator must be organized, but the minute that I was curious to understand what was her thinking in that organization, then okay, so then it became easier for me to yield. I still don't like it, but the thing is that it still doesn't make sense in my brain. But always remember that when you are in a marriage or in any relationship, it can never be about winning, personal wins. It's about the winning of the relationship. So for any relationship to survive, we have to have moments where we win and moments where we lose. We have to learn to lose and take pleasure in even losing, because sometimes you lose, you give up your self-interest, but you have that great satisfaction to see the other happy and to see that the relationship is more important than what each person individually wants. So as you can see and hear, that is a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. So relationships are a lot of work. I say that to, and I'm going to use a few more minutes because there is something that I really, really like about marriages and spiritual work, which is when we meet someone and we fall in love with someone, we are normally entering an obsessive process. Okay? So any dating phase is you're totally obsessed, you become blind, you don't see, you only see what you want. That person is the most 2 weeks later you're posting on Facebook that that person is the person of your life, right? And then 3 months later there's another person because that didn't work out. But so marriage is the most efficient disobsession process that I have known. So once you get married to someone, the disobsession starts, and you start to actually see the person for who he or she truly is. And in this process lies your best and only opportunity to actually learn true love.
It's really good to have smart people, you know, in your role of friends. I just love that. Plus one on all of them. Try to be really hip here. By the way, Facebook,
I know.
TikTok, I don't know.
Oh, please, Facebook, no.
I just also want to invite, I think everything that Susanna said was beautiful. And I think I also want to invite us to, again, look at behavior as an indicator of need. Because I heard, I was like, ruin the peace at home. And sometimes this happens, and it's hard to do because we take things personally, like Susanna was saying. We don't do the curiosity piece, right? Like sometimes maybe this happened to you. Oh, you go to the Spirit Center every Sunday, right? What you hear is, they don't want me to go to Spirit Center. But what the need they're expressing without knowing what to really say is, you're spending a lot of time with other people. I want to spend time. And that's a very different argument, right? But we just don't know how to communicate. So if you're curious, and you should go back and say, what are you really saying? What is it that you really need? then I think it becomes easier to navigate the challenges of the relationship too. So think as behavior, not as oppositional, but as a need that's not expressed. That's super hard, but that helps quite a bit, right? Maybe you can find a solution, but if you're not curious, then that's good.
It was awesome.
I'm gonna add something real quick because I think it's appropriate. Joanna de Angelis says that it's really important for us to spiritualize the marriage, right? What does that mean? To look at that as a bond and a partnership between two spirits that have a history, have a past, and that are on this incarnation to make amends, to make a different life for themselves. Now I'm going to ask you, who here has a partner or a spouse that exactly like you? I haven't seen it. I mean, I love my wife to death. We couldn't be more different. She only has the same name, but that's it. Right? I mean, those are some opportunities for us to learn from our partners. That think in a way that we don't. That understand the world with a different lens that we do. And then accepting that, hashtag Spiritists are inclusive. When we accept that, it's a different, right, conversation. And to wrap on Joanna's saying, every time we make a marriage a competition, that's a spiral, or what's the word I'm looking for? Spiral. I mean, downward spiral. Thank you for issues, right? For favors. That's not how we should work marriages, right? On the opposite, look for differences, understand those differences, acknowledge those differences, respect each other. Yeah, you like to go to the Spirit Center 3 times a week. I respect that, but I'd love to spend more time with you, right? You like to do these things. I don't. I don't have to do it. You go do it yourself. Not in a way to obsess the other, but to partner with the other. You don't have to do every single little thing with your spouse. That'll be boring, right? Come on, let's be honest. Every single little thing will be challenging. On the opposite, right? Be curious, try to see the world like he or she does, and have a blissful life. That's how I think we should, figure out the idea of marriage. So you know the last thing. That's that. So for the record,
What he said. Actually, as they were talking, I was thinking about it from the other side, that instead of waiting for the conflict, I'm curious, so we can have a habit of, during breakfast, we bring a question for us to talk about. So it's a way of staying connected throughout the day. It's a slow process, but it's a positive way of building a marriage instead of waiting for the conflict.
Yeah. Nice. Great insight. Thank you. Edward, we do have one question for you. It's very interesting, and I'm pretty sure so many people are curious about this. It's not about the questions you ask every morning during breakfast. All right. So, Edward, as you know, Spiritism is much more known in Brazil than in the US. Could you please share your experience on what attracted you to it?
Well, to be honest, I got that was the first. That was the first. She asked for the breakfast. I couldn't answer them, so. The thing that's coming to me is that, in a way, Spiritism is a blank canvas. What I mean by that is that you can draw a lot of your own life using the Spiritist ideas instead of having prescriptions, proscriptions. So it's allowed, it gives a lot of freedom It's the way I see it instead of I know there's always a controversy whether it's religion or not, suggest, but it's asking questions. That's what I mean by it. So you ask the questions, you have your answer, you put them up on the board, and you have your own verdict. I think that's really what practice. Plus, I read a lot of different kinds of religions. It's amazing to see this accept so much.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing your story with us. So we're down to the last 20 minutes, and I'm gonna throw a question to the four of you. Feel free to answer in any order, and it's very current, like all the other questions that were presented to the four of you so far. So, how to fight hatred that comes to our hearts with the violent happenings currently in the world? With the violent acts that are currently happening in the world. Sure. How to fight hatred, how to fight the hatred that comes to our hearts with the violent acts currently happening in the world.
One perspective. There's plenty of fight. Understand. Call it out and say, oh, I am feeling this. Because awareness of those feelings is a key precondition for different choices. Sometimes we have those feelings, we have those things, and we don't even notice that we are angry and that we are angst. So if you feel that, you can just first of all say, oh, I'm feeling this. And ask yourself, why? If you have two choices, you can just let that go and do something else. Sometimes it's a moment thing, sometimes it's even a spiritual perception. Sometimes you just catch that there. You have to figure out if it's yours or not. But if it is, if you're feeling that, you've got to figure out what is it that you're truly about. Mahatma Gandhi once was asked if he was against war. He said, no, I'm in favor of peace. And that is a really beautiful and subtle distinction, because he's not fighting war, because that's what war is. He's just in favor of something else. He's not working against something, he's working for something greater. And I wonder if that has some relation to what we are about or should be about this. We are not here to change other people's perspectives or make them see things differently. We're here to live the best we can, and in doing that, give the example so that people choose to live differently. Sometimes we may have to stand up, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to go punches with them. There might be some rare instances of self-defense. We can talk about that, but be for something, I think, is the invitation of the moment. Not be against something, because it's really easy to get drawn into being against someone or somebody else. I don't know that it gets us anything different than we have. Right? So if we are going to be the salt of the earth, if we're going to be the difference, then we've got to make that intentional decision. That means knowing ourselves well about what is it that we want to be, what is it that it means, what is it that we should do. So obviously it's self-reflection and understanding grace. Sometimes you're just going to screw it up. You know, you pick yourself up. We're not perfect. We're not going to be perfect anytime soon. We're going to chip away little by little. That requires intentionality.
Yeah, I think I go with Dan in the sense that there's no point in, denying the feelings, right? So horrific things happen in the world. Getting to see them, they have been with us for a long time, and without our knowledge. So we'll feel what we feel, and that is okay. Um, it's even important, I would say. But I think what is also important in face of what we are seeing is that, what came to me is the image of Jesus, the purest of all beings, being tortured, being nailed, crucified, and looking down from the cross and saying, "What? Father, forgive them. They have no idea what they are doing." So, as hard as that might be, is something that we can pull from within, from our knowledge, from our faith. And I think something that is very, very important, whether we're talking about war or anything else, is that every time we approach human beings with judgment, what we are doing is we are saying with our judgment, "You are different than me. I am not that. You are down here and I am up here." We are separating and we are telling with our judgment that we are different, and that is not true. Perhaps we have different levels of disturbance and disharmony. But in a recent talk that I did, I said, what can we do? What can we do? Sometimes we feel so powerless in face of all the wars and the horrific things that are happening out there, but there is so much that we can do. We can start by ending our personal wars. Because I'm sorry to say this, but the reason why people are fighting out there is not different for the reasons that we fight within our families. It's not different than the reason that we stop talking to people who were our friends for a long, long time, and then suddenly we are unable to forgive. There is so much conflict in our personal lives. So if we can start by ceasing with these conflicts, by bringing the perspective of immortality to our daily lives, by strengthening our self-love to the point that we are no longer relying on people's approvals and love to feel loved. Right? So this is what we can do. Two things is to invest all our resources to end our personal wars and to bring this view that every single person out there is not different than who I am, and we are all, again, brothers and sisters. So when we pray, let's pray for everyone. Let's pray for humanity, because this is what we need. And another thing that we can do, we can be the end of any discussion, of any conversation that goes in the opposite direction of love. So if people start talking to you and pulling for a side, let them meet our silence. Be the end of that conversation, because again, the world is polarized enough. We can help by not feeding the polarization, by being the end of the conflict. So those are just little things that, as things have happened, I have been reflecting on and think they're they seem very little, but they're actually very powerful ways in which we can contribute to the peace in the world.
I guess what I'd like to add, and I agree with wholeheartedly with what Dan and Susanna mentioned, it's important to understand why are we feeling that hatred. Because we only feel hatred if we take sides. We only feel hatred if we believe that what we care for has been unjustified, or there's some injustices in the world, that my people or my folks or my friends or this, and that. I think by not trying to be empathetic with both sides, we can feel or we can fall in this trap of being biased and only look from one angle. I saw a beautiful image not too long ago from a school in Massachusetts where they raised the Israeli and the Palestinian flag side by side. We don't understand what's going on there. We don't live there. So every idea that we make, it's through second and third party. Can we really understand or make sense? Maybe an idea, but not really complete sense of what's going on. So to their point, the moment we start changing our minds and being empathetic with everyone, not just these people versus those people, because that's going to put us in a very dangerous position of taking sides. And every time we take sides, what are we doing? We're leaving somebody. That's all we learn from Spiritism. Spiritism teaches us through reincarnation, we can be in every side, all sides, in our next life. Maybe we were in a different side in a previous one. Maybe we learned, maybe we were the ones who caused some of those conflicts back then. So we don't have the whole knowledge of the situation. But how can we help? Through prayer, through sending positive thoughts, not being caught on this spiral, downward spiral of dangerous conversations. Because hatred unites more than love, unfortunately. We're at a level as human beings, as spirits, that hatred unites way more than love does. For the short term, I was going to get there, for the short term. So we have to be this differentiator. We have to be this water divider. This doesn't really make, this doesn't really do it for me anymore. How do we change my mindset? How do I change that? So I don't feel what everybody else is feeling. I acknowledge, I'm empathetic with what's happening in the world. I pray for them, but I remember and I trust the Creator, who nothing happens. Not even one leaf falls from a tree without God knowing. That's how.
Edward, would you like to make a comment as well? No, thank you. All right. Actually, it's funny. I got a comment here for someone. You're saying, we'd like to hear Ed play again for us. But, it's not going to be... thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for the great speakers, our friends. Please, yeah. We're almost wrapping up, but we still have some time. Please, go ahead.
Say really quick. We also wanted to say one more time, 2016. And we wanted to acknowledge and salute you on this incredible gift that it is to have the Spiritism group and be part of the Spiritism group. I hope that you take that into your heart, because it's almost like little salmon, it's like running upstream, right? But for me, to have a part of the Spiritist group in a world that is so focused on fame, wealth, and beauty, Spiritist group is the oasis in the middle of the desert. It's a place where we come to learn, to grow, where nobody gets paid to do anything. We spend our own money. We work alone hours. People complain about it. We love it. Right? Because in our hearts, something is taking hold of our hearts that is challenging the paradigm that the world is giving us. We're beginning to feel in our heart that serving others and learning is something special. And so the group goes against what the world tells us we should be doing, spending time, making money, being famous, or whatever it is. Probably not going to happen. Right? But wonderful things are going to happen in this group. Healing takes place in this group. Learning takes place in this group. And you guys make space for all people to come here and experience that and impart that and practice all the things that these folks have shared with you. So I just hope that in your day-to-day, when you come into group on Sundays or Mondays or whatever it is, sometimes you're not automatic pilot, you don't think about it. But just think about it. 26, 52, what's 52 times 26? That's more than 1,000, right? More than 1,000. work, learning. What a wonderful thing that is. And so, from us, who have a chance to come here every once in a while and take all the glory of being in front of people, right? We really want to say how proud and how excited we are that you do this work every single day. And we want to acknowledge you. We wish you another 26 years of love, growth, and being in a beautiful oasis in the middle of a very arid and tough world. So congratulations to all.
I also want to say a few words because I was talking to Dan during lunch. I want to, we you may not believe this, but we have busy lives, and we receive some invitations to go places and do what we did today. And Dan and I were talking about how both of us, you were in our conversation, so I'm leaving you out. And
We don't always invite Fabio.
no, he's a little bit of a outcaster. But we were talking about how one of the things that we do nowadays is to prioritize invitations for the work in English. So these days, congratulations for keeping up with the work in English. It's extremely, extremely difficult. You should really be proud to put this day together. I feel very proud of you. And I feel very blessed to be here. My son is playing football this afternoon, homecoming day. And but it's for the English work, it's definitely worth it. There are very few people doing it, and so for the ones who are doing it, you can always count. And I'm gonna speak for the three of us because we kind of a thing together. So you can always count on us. We'll be here, right? Okay. Yes, just confirming, and again, please do not give up on it. I know that it's hard. We do have an English work at Conscious in Miami, and in our Middle Mystic group, the spirits always come and say, we were here. I was hearing these lectures on Sunday, and you guys are not. One recently told us, you guys are not talking about Jesus enough. Kind of reprimanding us. And so I make sure I always mention Jesus from now on in every single lecture. And so, we reopen after COVID with literally 3-4 people sitting there. We still have very few incarnate, but it took 16 years to build our Sunday meetings. And it's been only 1 year since we reopened after COVID, and we are there, and we will be there. We have to do our part. So, long story. Just want to say congratulations. Thank you for this day. I know we're gonna be tomorrow in Portuguese, but I really would like to acknowledge and give you a boost of energy and encouragement to continue with the work.
Well said, Dan and Susanna.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you again. Thank you for our friends here. I would say our speakers, but actually more like we see more than my friends here of us of Atlanta for all the work and for the great lectures, the great insights. Thank you for everybody who came. Thank you for all the great volunteers, the wonderful ladies who prepared the lunch, served the lunch for us. The lunch was great. Coffee was very hot and strong, the way we needed it, so perfect. Thank you for our friends in the audiovisual who had some trouble, but they're like those amazing workers that no matter what happens, they just keep pushing through. We're very proud of them. And this officially concludes, we're towards the end of today's event. Just as a reminder, tomorrow we'll reconvene at SEER. Flavio, people are gonna see a light coming from me, but yeah, it's not gonna be his aura, right? Yeah, well, maybe it is. You don't know. So yeah, but tomorrow we'll reconvene at we call SEER our sister Spiritist Center, our sister group. Again tomorrow at 10. It's going to be in Portuguese. However, Susanna, to your point, it's going to be with simultaneous translation. So the North Americans will have to participate and be there as well. We're going to have Flavio, Susanna, and Dan again. Ed, not this time, but sometime we're still working on having translation to Portuguese, but that's for a future event. Let's see here, come on. All right, so tomorrow again at 10, artistic performance. We're gonna have Flavio, Susanna again, but it shows in English, but it's gonna be in Portuguese. Nurturing self-compassion, embracing imperfections. Flavio, you're resentful, now what? Artistic performance tomorrow, and then we'll close with embracing change, navigating transitions, and finding inner peace. And then there's going to be a round table. Just a reminder again, even though we see the titles here in English, it's going to be in Portuguese with simultaneous translations. So I hope to see everybody there. So two housekeeping announcements. So if we would like to see everybody tomorrow at SEER, but if you are not going to attend tomorrow, please make sure you return your badge so we can reuse it for future events. And also, Dan was mentioned the 26 years. Today is the 26th anniversary of this Spiritism Center, the Christian Spiritist community. We're very honored to have all of our friends here, friends from different places of the country, right? From California, from Florida, Boston, and in the tri-state as well, and in Tennessee now. Yeah, I know sometimes I kind of Milwaukee, and any other place I forget. And wow, and of course our friends online who are following us from different parts of the world as well. So today is 26th anniversary of of this organization, and to Susanna's point, there have been ups and downs. There have been some very tough challenges. For instance, COVID was very hard on us. Hit like other centers, hit us very hard. But it's funny. It's interesting because sometimes we think that when we are doing this work, it's us, right? But it turns out that it's not us. There's some inspiration, some energy that comes from the spiritual world, and I don't know how things just happen, and we're still here after 26 years. So, and everybody's invited for our 26 years from now, 52 years. Please, make sure you come back here. We're gonna be incarnated or disincarnated. Either incarnated or disincarnated, please be back. But also be back next. Please also be back next year. We're gonna have the 17th Spiritist Conference as well. And so we're gonna have some cake after we finish here with our final prayer. We're gonna please head downstairs, have some cake as well with us to celebrate with us. At this moment, to officially close our event, I'm gonna invite our friend Marcia Trajano, who also happens to be one of the founders of our group, but she's also, even though she's in Tennessee, but to us, she's on loan. She's special assignment. She's also the founder of Solitude Center for Spiritual Living in Tennessee. We're so happy to have our friend here.
Can we turn off the light? Perhaps just one. Yes, it's good. Let's just take this moment to feel all the goodness, all the light that is shining in our hearts, that links us together in a warm embrace. We spent the day together, learning, sharing. We spent the day committing as immortal spirits to be better, to surf the wave of happiness. And we ask at this moment, as we approach the end of the day, that we all be grateful for all that we received, and that we're committed as immortal spirits to see the other as the same, with the joys, all the sadness, and all the life that we all bring with us. We ask that the beneficent guides that are here, spirits of light, bless each and every one of us to be with us as we go back home, and that we continue to shed this light in every encounter that we have, every person that we meet, that we too be the light that shines the world. So be it.
Thank you, Marcia. So we officially conclude our activities for today. And again, everybody's in. Oh, we want to take we're going to take a picture group. Awesome, awesome. Officially, we conclude the activities for today, but make sure we stay a little bit. Just stay for picture. And if you want to, follow us downstairs to eat some cake and celebrate with us our 26th anniversary. Thank you.